I'm Don Pettit, and we have Dan Burbank here. We're on the International Space Station, and we're doing a demonstration with didgeridoos and oscillation of spheres of water. And we've seen on an earlier science episode what happens when I put a drop of water, or actually a fairly large sphere of water, on the speaker, and I drove it with pure sine wave tones from my MP3 player, and it drove the water sphere into some delightful oscillations. And so what we're doing now is live, real time, no recording. We're going to drive sphere oscillations with the melodious notes from our orbital didgeridoo. Now, I didn't happen to bring a didgeridoo with me on this mission. There's not a lot of room in the Soyuz to put a didgeridoo. So we cobbled one up from the space station vacuum cleaner hose. So I got to play the didgeridoo. I'm not really that much of a musician, and I certainly don't look like one. And, you know, the kind of people that play didgeridoos, they look pretty much like musicians. And maybe I better do something so I look a little bit more like a didgeridoo player. Stand by. So I got a pair of scissors, and I made my crew shirt into a real musician didgeridoos kind of attire. And so I can play my didgeridoo now. It's a good thing we have towels set up all around here to catch these flying drops. And watch this now. I'm going to make these big, and they're not going to spoil off as much water now. That's kind of interesting. Now, let me change out the right angle adapter for the crevice tool, and let's see how it sounds. And what we're going to do now is we're going to hook two hoses together and listen to the sound. Now, I'm going to be out of the camera picture because this is a long didgeridoo, and but it makes a real cool sound. So listen. When we're all done, we can clean up space station and vacuum out all the HEPA filters that collect all the little dust bunnies and things that are generated during the course of a week's worth of activity. Summary?
So there's a lot of very interesting science going on here, and essentially what you're doing is creating resonance down the length of a hose, and the hoses are kind of tuned generally to a specific note, and if you change the outlet end of it here, you can change where the nodes are in that wave, for example. So we're hypothesizing that by putting this right angle adapter on it, that essentially you're cutting the frequency in half, and making it a higher pitch because you're essentially anchoring a node here. There'll be a node at this end, and you'll essentially have a standing wave down the length of this hose. With two hoses, and if you remove it and put the crevice tool, our thinking is that that you've now got a pitch of a tone that's about half of that, so it's a much lower tone. And then if you attach two ends of the hose or two hoses together, it's getting lower still. And so it's really interesting, and it's also very interesting to see how the size of the spheres is affected by the tone. So the spheres are tuned, and you can excite a mode in those, and it's dependent upon the tone as well. So it's an interesting mix of science, music, a little bit of culture, and a little bit of cleaning supplies on board space station. So anyways, it's always an interesting exercise to look at all the things around you and try to look at them in a different way.